Senator Kyl.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to each of the witnesses. As Senator Portman said, the responsibilities between the three of you are enormous, and they relate everything to our country's national security right down to each local community's problems in dealing with these threats. Let me turn to a very real and very specific problem in a small community in Arizona. Primarily, Secretary Nelson, my question will be for you. Yuma is a small town on the border between California, Arizona, and Mexico. It's primarily a farming community. There are a lot of people who are citizens of Mexico who come into the United States daily to work in the United States in and around Yuma. But it is also a place where there is significant illegal border crossing, everything from illegal contraband and drugs to smuggling of people. Because of two phenomena, one of which is the family apprehensions rate, and the chart that the chairman has showed in our previous hearing and this hearing demonstrates the enormous increase in family apprehensions in the recent months, and the Flores decision, which places a limit on the amount of time that you have to evaluate the illegal entries and determine what to do with the people who've been detained. The combination of those two things has put enormous strain on your agencies and on communities as well. Just last Sunday, on October 7th, ICE began to curtail reviews of these family units in Arizona in the Yuma sector because the numbers are simply overwhelming its capacity to do those reviews and deal with the local community agencies that have been assisting to provide transportation and housing and education and medical care and food and the like. Yuma Mayor Douglas Nichols has called us and said, could you please inquire as to what we can expect in the future, what we can do to help, but what they can do to help us. The community reaches out and does a lot of this itself, but if these reviews are not being done because the numbers are too overwhelming, then the fact is that people in Yuma are going to be threatened to some extent by an enormous number of illegal entrants into the country, and some of whom may not be making asylum claims. Some of these people may be dangerous, notwithstanding the fact that they have children with them. So one of my questions is, do you know how many of the people who are detained in this particular sector or any sector have made their asylum claims, or how many are simply here illegal without any colorable claim to be here?
Sir, I do not have that figure in front of me for Yuma, but we're happy to get right back to you.
Well, how would you prioritize the cases here if I simply can't, within the timeframes required by Flores, engage in the review that's necessary here and is simply releasing all of these people into this small community? What can we tell the community?
So two things, as you described, we have two limitations currently with respect to family units. One is the amount of detention space for family residential centers, and the second is the Flores settlement agreement, which limits our ability to hold past 20 days. When you put the two together with the increase in family units, we saw another 30% increase between July and August. The numbers are vast. When we have families in the family residential center, we're able to spend quite a bit of time with them to determine where they would like to go, where their family, if they have some, is in the United States. As you know, we arrange for travel, et cetera. When we're not able because we don't have space or because we can't keep them in a facility long enough to have that conversation, what we do and what you've seen in Yuma is we reach out to the NGO community and try to work with them to receive them as they come out of our care.
Right, and the NGO community is now overburdened as well. So given the large numbers, hundreds and hundreds, and the short time frames, what can we expect your agency to do or to recommend that other parts of the government can assist with in order to solve this problem? Because right now, as of last Sunday, they're flooding into the community with literally no ability to do anything about it.
My department will continue to ask Congress to pass legislation to clarify that families can be detained until they are removed. If they have an asylum claim, they can be detained until we can adjudicate that asylum claim. But, sir, that is the solve. We need the ability to keep families together.
Would you please put somebody on this and get back to me as soon as
Yes.
possible so that I can get back to the mayor?
Yes, sir.
To let him know and to let the citizens of Yuma know that the government here is trying its very best to work to solve this problem. Director Ray, I have a specific question for you, and it really goes to an assessment, and Mr. Travers, I think probably you related to this as well. There's a lot in the news about the threat from Russia, especially with regard to cyber attacks and specifically with regard to our election process. But because of what you've said about China, is it possible to say that China does not represent at least an equal threat in several different venues here, not only in the cyber area, but also the disruption of and the disinformation campaigns that have been discussed earlier, as well as the theft of data and the like?
Well, Senator, I'm reluctant to try to rank threats, but I would tell you that I think China in many ways represents the broadest, most complicated, most long-term counterintelligence threat we face. Russia is in many ways fighting to stay relevant after the fall of the Soviet Union. They're fighting today's fight. China is fighting tomorrow's fight, and the day after tomorrow, and the day after that, and it affects every sector of our economy, every state in the country, and just about every aspect of what we hold dear. So certainly it's a very significant counterintelligence threat.
Well said, and I appreciate your answer. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.